and thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Live and Invest Overseas podcast. I'm Kat Kalashian. I am wearing my Panama hat again today because we're here to talk about some things that everybody should know or you'll wish someone had told you before you move to Panama. So here we go. 29 things you should know before you move to Panama. Number one, Spanglish is very common. We have a few examples up here for you. Fren, Watchman, Porcon, Windshield Wiper, and Cool and Pretty are all used in conversation pretty regularly in Panama. The Spanglish comes through in a lot of different ways down there, so look out for it when you're learning Spanish and trying to speak Spanish. Living in Panama City, if you've ever been there, if you've visiting, living there is not cheap, but the rest of the country is. And there's really no comparison between the cost of living in Panama City and the rest of the country. So don't go to Panama City and make the snap judgment that everywhere in Panama is going to be just as expensive. The produce and the seafood here are just fantastic. Some of the locally grown produce is the best you'll ever have in your life. The pineapples, the coconuts, the watermelon is very famous in Panama. But also the seafood and the particular ways of preparing it. So ceviche is one of the most common ways of preparing fish in Panama, and it's absolutely delicious. There are so many different kinds you can get. If you happen to be in Panama City, go down to Casco Viejo to the fish market and try out the ceviches while you're sitting on the seafront. And just grilled fish as well. Excellent, no matter where you go, and you can get that anywhere on any beach. You will need a car when you're living in Panama, even if you're living in the city. It is a pretty small city. It's compact, and there is a metro there, and there are bus lines, but pretty much to live comfortably in Panama City, you're going to need a car. The metros don't run necessarily to all the places that you would need to get to, so it would be a little bit inconvenient if you tried to rely just on the metros and the bus. You'll definitely be more comfortable in a car. And if you're outside the city, you pretty much always need a car because everything is going to be a little bit further than walking distance, and buses are going to take too long. So speaking of transportation, if you are in the city just visiting, we recommend using Uber or one of the other ride-sharing systems other than taxis instead of taxis. The taxis are not great there. They're not super well regulated. The cars can be in pretty bad condition. They are getting a little bit better now that they have some competition from all the ride-hailing companies, but still, you're almost always going to be charged more by a taxi than you would by an Uber. And some of the newer companies are even cheaper. I've heard InDriver is one of the cheaper options right now. There's also Didi and Cabify. And especially coming from the airport, if this is, your first time visiting Panama, don't get a taxi from the airport. You'll be charged 30 euros $30 as opposed to maybe $10 using Uber. So look out for that when you arrive. The rainy season does last for most of the year. This is the rainforest. That's why it's called that. So from April to December, it rains every day, not all day, but certainly every day. It's rare that it doesn't rain. That doesn't mean you won't have sun. It could be sunny all morning and you just have a quick 20-minute monsoon style shower in the afternoon. That's pretty typical. That's what you can expect. Sometimes the rain can last a little longer. Sometimes you can have cloudy days on end, but the weather is always warm, to say the least, whether it's raining or not. Although I will say the rain can be a little bit dangerous at times. It's a little risky if you get caught out in it. My husband and I were walking along the causeway one time, and we thought we could just manage to, push ourselves through the rain, but it became so heavy and the drops were so thick that our dog was like yelping from the pain of these raindrops hitting us, and there's not much shelter you can take underneath of a palm tree. So we ended up having to double sprinting back as far as we could to get back to the car in time. So watch out for getting stuck in the rain, even if it is warm out still. It's no joke. And don't forget the flooding. There's also going to be plenty of flooding if you're in Panama City, especially. So look out for that. And, it's not typical. It's not every single day, and it is getting better. Drainage systems are getting improved. But you can definitely wade through water in Panama City if you get caught on a bad street. Speaking of this, the kind of climate, this part of the world, we're on the equator. not a lot changes on the equator. You might not have thought too much about it beyond being on your vacation, but there aren't seasons. You might start to miss seasons. I lived in Panama for 7 years, and I really did miss seasons by the time I left. What I do really miss about Panama, though, and being on the equator, is the length of day never really changes. And I guess it can be a good thing or a bad thing. I loved waking up with the sun around between 6 and 6:30 every morning. It did get dark early, so that is kind of a shame. You kind of got home from work and it felt like nighttime already. But I really enjoyed the consistency of those hours. It made it easy to plan things, and I have had to get used to having difference in daylight hours here in France, which is much different. So things to keep in mind about living on the equator. Um, Another thing to know about Panama is that Panamanians love fireworks. So for any holiday, every holiday, no holiday, personal holiday, there's no telling when you might hear or see fireworks in Panama City. If you have a dog like mine that it doesn't necessarily like all the banging, it might be something to keep in mind. But it is really fun to, if you're in your home in Panama City and you happen to hear some booms and you look out the window and you get your own free show in the middle of the week and you have no idea why, but it was a fun little fireworks show. But they can go off late at night as well. So again, something to keep in mind if you're a light sleeper. You'll need to download WhatsApp living in Panama City. Living in anywhere in Panama. WhatsApp is the main form of communication. If you don't know it already, get familiar with it. It's an app that you'll download on any smartphone. It is a pretty common method of communication all around the world now. And I'd say I probably use WhatsApp more than any other communication service that I have on my phone. And I live in France now, but that became true in Panama. And in Panama, they take it to another level entirely. My dentist, my doctor would send me updates telling me that I needed to come in for an appointment or asking if I could change my appointment via text. And they would expect just a text in reply. So it's a different level of professionalism than you might be used to, but get used to it. WhatsApp is by far and away the main method of communication in Panama. You will also, when it comes to keeping in touch with people, there isn't a postal service in Panama. There's no national service for delivering mail. So if you do want to get mail while you're there, you'll need to sign up for what's called a mail forwarding service. Mailboxes, etc., is one of the most common. It was the one I used when I lived there. It's, you pay a monthly fee or a yearly fee. And if you end up getting too much weight one month, they might give you an extra fee at the end of it. But for a certain amount per month, you can have things shipped in. So, for example, you can buy things on Amazon, US Amazon, and have them sent down to you via that mail forwarding service. You can send you cards, postcards, etc. So if you still want to use mail, that's the way you've got to do it. Number 11, that brings us to, we're halfway through our list of things that you need to know when living in Panama. And for more tips and insider things like this, be sure to sign up for In Focus Panama. It's a free newsletter that is sent out every week, and you'll find, something interesting from some expat or somebody living here in there in Panama, I should say, every week, absolutely free. So don't forget to sign up for that. Getting back to number 11, once again, don't forget where we're talking about geographically in the world. This is the jungle. You may be living in Panama City, but it is still basically the jungle. You're beating it back every day. So included in that are spiders, cockroaches, mosquitoes, scorpions, snakes, caimans, all kinds of pests. If you want to call caimans a pest, where they actually can be. You can have infestations of caimans if you live near the water. But all these things definitely exist. I'm one of those people that is a mosquito magnet. So living in Panama, I was constantly just covered in bug bites. I had cortisone in my purse all the time. So it's something to keep in mind. If you really hate snakes, stay away from the parks, the national reserves, live in the city. You won't really encounter too many, but if you go anywhere near the jungle, the rainforest, you're going to start to come across all of these things. Even, in the city, of course, cockroaches, rats, things like that, like any other city in the world. But what some people might forget about are, all of those giant tropical spiders and the big mosquitoes that are around all year long because there's no respite in winter. So something to keep in mind. You can also, though, bring your pets easily. So there may be pests in Panama, but you can also bring your own pets. You can't necessarily take them out again quite as easily, though. It depends on where you're moving to from Panama. I moved from Panama to France, and because of this status, the rabies status of Panama versus France, it wasn't as easy for me to bring my animals with me to France as it was to bring them into Panama, and it took quite an extra few steps in the process and quite a lot longer than it would have otherwise. So keep that in mind if you think you're going to move out of Panama again. You might want to put some research into that. Permanent residency, it's a great backup plan. It might not be something that you've thought a lot about. If you're just thinking about in terms of lifestyle, living in Panama is a great place to live, great place to retire. But it's also a great place just to act as a plan B if you are thinking that you might want to, not always live in the United States. The way that coronavirus has taught us that you always want to have multiple ways to get into a country. With all those border restrictions we experienced in the past few years, it became very clear to people that you couldn't always count on, being a citizen of a country to get in, or to, that you could be stranded somewhere, or that you might not want to stay in the country if there are certain regulations that are being enforced there that you don't agree with. If you have a ticket to another country and a visa to get in, it's a great backup plan to have. So Panama offers a really great residency program, many great residency programs. And depending on which route you take, you could gain permanent residency, which is great because once you have it, once you've obtained it, you only have to go back to Panama every couple of years. Just, go in if you've moved away, for example. So you live in Panama, you're a resident, then you decide to move away again. You only have to go back once every 2 years, take a quick vacation, and you have effectively renewed your status. And so you can't, as long as you're making those visits, they can't take that residency away from you. So you'll always have a way into Panama and another place to go if you don't like where you are. So it's another thing to think about, just all of the aspects of moving to another country. Don't forget that these include things like residency visas and things that you're going to have to think about along the lines of banking, for example. Number 14, Banco General is is the most common bank in Panama. Everywhere in the country and including in the capital. Most people have an account with Banco General, so it makes it a really good place to get a bank if for ease of transfers and for making rental payments and other transactions that you'd like to make via banking. It's very easy if you're all in the same system. So just a little tip there. Number 15, not a handicapped friendly country. Unfortunately, it's just not, there's no way to really say it otherwise. The city in particular is not handicap friendly. You can't count on ramps. There are lots of cracks in the sidewalk, holes, manhole covers missing. This is going back years now, but definitely I know many stories of people who have fallen and had severe injuries in Panama City or in other cities in Panama because of, huge cracks in the sidewalk that weren't covered over, or tree roots growing out of nowhere. Or in my case, one time I was walking home in the dark from a yoga class. Well, it wasn't totally dark, but it was at night, and I was coming home from a yoga class, and crossing the street, I didn't notice that there were some electrical cables that had fallen down right around the height of my neck. So I walked into them. It was like a little noose that I walked into before I caught myself and managed to get out of it. So be aware of your surroundings, and it's definitely not a place for those with mobility issues. If you can't get around on these kinds of pavements, then it might not be a great choice for you. On the other hand, if you do like mobility and getting around, there's a great deal right currently. You can go to the Cinta Costera if you happen to be in Panama City. A great weekend activity, for example, go to the Cinta Costera and take advantage of the free bikes that are along there. They didn't have free bikes when I lived there, so please take advantage of that. It's a great way. I had my own bike when I lived there, and it's one of my favorite activities in Panama is to ride my bike up and down the Cinta Costera. So now that they're for free, go take advantage. You don't need to have your own bike. You can be a visitor in the city and take advantage of that. Another really cool thing that's come about since I moved is this app, Pedidos Ya. You can have basically, as I understand it, anything delivered, anything in the city from takeout to groceries to drinks to medicine from the pharmacy to pet products, and they'll even run errands for you, like dropping off, picking up packages, things like that. So basically, a really excellent courier service that you can just order on your app. Um, Things like this are always remind me about number 17, how Americanized the culture is here in Panama. It is, or there in Panama, I should say. I'm getting into the headspace. I feel like I'm back there. Um, in terms of malls, movie theaters, the chain stores you'll find, the restaurants, the fast food, there's a huge amount of Americanized culture. A lot of the products on the shelves were imported from the States. That's, good and bad thing, depending on what you're looking for in life. If you love your favorite A1 steak sauce or whatever it is, the Velveeta mac and cheese, that was my thing. You can get it in Panama, no problem. And it's great. It makes it a very convenient kind of easy step to take from coming from the United States if you're a little bit more wary, or from Canada, if you're a little bit more wary about feeling a little out of place. All these familiar things really go a long way to making you feel integrated in your new home pretty easily. It doesn't go all the way though. There are still a lot of things missing, a lot of things that you could say, you wish there was a Walmart, or you wish there was a Home Depot, or whatever it is. So there are still things that are going to challenge you. So don't worry, it's not a completely familiar culture, but definitely there's a lot of familiarity. Holidays, on the other hand, are not going to be quite as familiar. Number 18, holidays are disruptive. And I mean that in the best possible way. It goes back to the fireworks. Holidays in Panama require a big loud bang, a big splash, a big to do, and a lot of times that takes the form of days off. So for me, it almost seemed like from November to March, it felt like was mostly holidays, and that's not too much of an exaggeration, actually. November is the Mes de la Patria, which is the month of the fatherland, or I don't know how else you'd say it, a month of patriotism, I guess, where there are several, I think 4 in total holidays, all to do with Panama's patria. So there's 2 different Independence Days. There's Flag Day. I think there's a Cry for Independence Day. I think those are all of the 4. And then in December, you've got Mother's Day on the 8th. You've got Christmas, then New Year's. January is a pretty solid month, but then you go into February when it's Carnival season. And during Carnival, you can basically count out a whole week of the calendar. Even if there's only one technical day that lands on a weekday that's a holiday, most of the country shuts down for the week. Most people take off and go to the beach for the week, and that's just how it is. So November is not a good month to go to Panama, because what really makes a difference is when these holidays fall on a Monday or a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, and they'll bridge them. Or I don't even know, I forget how it works. If the holiday's on a Tuesday and the other's on a Sunday, then they'll move the Sunday one to the Monday, so then you end up going from Friday to Wednesday, So there'll be these crazy bridge days, they call them, that really can make it so that a whole week again in November is lost as well. So November, not a good time to go down to get things done. If you have, administration, or if you're picking a month to move, November is not a good one. February is also not a good one. And December, most things shut down all over the world in December. So not another month that's the best one for moving. But really fun to spend the holidays there. Most holidays are spent on the beach, and Christmas has its own really wonderful traditions. So great place to spend the holidays if you can enjoy the holidays. Not so great if you have to work through them. Whether you're there for work or for pleasure, though, number 19, you can go hiking or to the beach every weekend. And this is true whether you're in the city or in the interior. As we say, anything outside of Panama City is in the interior, really. No matter where you're located, you can almost always get to some place for great hiking and great water activities, whether that's fishing, swimming, boating, diving, snorkeling, whatever, tanning on the beach, whatever it is. Almost anywhere in Panama, you've got great options within probably an hour tops. The most I think would be from Panama City to get to the good beaches. You'd have to spend an hour. Anywhere else in the country, I think probably 30 minutes. You can get to a good beach or to good hiking. And in the city, you might not think about the hiking in the city, but there are huge nature reserves all throughout the city. They call them the lungs of the city, some of them, and they're all around. So hit those national parks. Go to Parque Omar, for example. It's a smaller park, but still huge. Go hiking on the weekdays. You know, you can do it on a week morning, Wednesday night, whenever you want. It's all there. Number 20, great healthcare, especially in Panama City. In the rest of the country, you're going to need to check the local facilities. Don't take them for granted. Make sure that you can get to them, that they're within whatever your comfortable radius would be, whether that's 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, depending on your health. So when you're in the interior, just make sure if wherever you're setting up your house, make sure that you're comfortable with whatever the local health services are. But if you are in the city, a lot of people harp on about the American hospital there, which is fantastic. It is great. It's Johns Hopkins affiliated, Punta Pacifica Hospital, but it is much more expensive than all of the other hospitals in the city. And it's not necessarily any better. I mean, it is, it does have the Johns Hopkins affiliation. It does have great accreditations, great ratings. I'm not saying it's a bad hospital by any stretch, but you can get excellent care from the doctors in the other hospitals as well for sometimes a fraction of the price. So something to keep in mind. No matter where you are, though, whether you're in the interior, in the city, whatever hospital you're in, meds, any kind of medications, prescriptions, over-the-counter stuff is very, very cheap. And it's all very familiar. Again, I'm here in Europe now where the medications and the pharmacies aren't familiar when you go in, but over there in Panama, you go in, all of the brands are, more or less the same. You're going to be able to recognize most of the over-the-counter drugs. Prescriptions, make sure you know the generic name, the pharmaceutical name of whatever it is. And if you don't know, if you can't find it, you just ask the pharmacist, and they might not know by its name in the US, whatever name it's branded as there. It might have its own brand in Panama, but they'll be able to find it very easily, and it'll very likely be a fraction of what you pay in the US. Some of the most stunning sunrises and sunsets that you'll see in your life can be seen here in Panama. There in Panama, the sunsets here, they're just fantastic, just breathtaking. I've talked to expats who say they've started getting up with the sunrise just for that reason, to see the sunrise every day. They never did it in their lives. They never were morning people before, but now they almost can't help themselves. They want to wake up and see the sunrise. I did it. I loved that part of living in Panama, that the sunrise wasn't too early. I could get up at 6:15, 6:30 every day, watch the sunrise with some coffee on my balcony. It's a really kind of magical moment to start the day with. And of course, ending the day with them is just as magical, even if it is a little early, around 6:30. Especially if you're outside of the city, though, if you're out at the beaches or if you're in the mountains, these are just stunning, stunning sunsets and sunrises. The laid back attitude is pretty pervasive. The manana attitude is what people often say about living in the tropics. And it's there's a reality to it for sure. So you can't be in quite as much of a rush as you might be to get things done as you would be in the US or in North America. Wait times are probably going to be longer than you're used to, whether it's at your bank or at the grocery store or, at the hair salon. But also in terms of, getting larger projects done, there isn't quite as much of an urgency about resolving issues or accomplishing, a building project, for example, might stretch on a lot longer than you expect it to. So that there is a reality to that kind of laid back, less rushed lifestyle in Panama. Be careful when you're renting. Number 24. This one's definitely important. If you are going to rent short term or long term, and we do recommend no matter what, whether you intend to buy eventually or not, always rent first. Always make sure that you vet your neighborhood, even the street that you're on, before you make too many commitments and get in too deep. But when it comes to renting in Panama, especially if you're going through any kind of classified system, it's very risky. I've known so many people personally who have come down to Panama to, and they start working for us at Live and Invest Overseas. And we start warning people after a while because we had so many people come in and say that they had an incident with a rental through the newspaper or through, Craigslist online or whatever it is. And they had gone to see the apartment in some cases. In some cases, they hadn't. In some cases, they had gone to see it, though, but didn't get the keys, were supposed to meet later, but had already given the deposit. But there are so many ways in which you could be scammed through a false rental listing in Panama. So whatever you do, if you are going to do rentals, make sure that you see the place for yourself and that you get the keys, and you know the keys are to that apartment that you saw or that house that you saw, not a different one. And don't hand over any money until you get both of those things. On a more positive note, Panama's coffee is some of the best in the world. No joke, it's award-winning. Geisha coffee, I forget what years it was, but it was definitely multiple years that Geisha coffee won, that was grown in Boquete, won the world's best coffee competition. I don't know what the official term for that competition is, but it won it for several years in a row. It's a top Panama, number 26, is a top place for expats to start businesses. Live and Invest Overseas is a great example. It was founded in 2008 in Panama, and it was basically the company was founded in Panama for that very reason. Kathleen Petticord and Leif Simon, the co-founders, moved from France to Panama to do just that, because there's few better places in the world to run a business and fewer more business friendly countries than Panama. So great opportunities for any aspiring entrepreneurs. It is also the most biodiverse country in Central America. So if you're not there for work, but more for bird watching, whale watching, snorkeling, diving, whatever it is that you like about nature, even just hiking, most biodiverse country in the region. It is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, the hiking opportunities, the beach opportunities, they're at your fingertips no matter where you are in the country. So take advantage and go out and see all of that biodiversity. Number 28, there are approximately 50,000 expats in Panama, and I would venture to say that 90% of those are North American, and certainly English speaking. So totally my guess, that could be totally wrong, but a lot of them are North American, and almost all of them are English speaking. So the biggest concentrations, if you're looking for them or looking to avoid them, Panama City, Boquete, the city beaches area, El Valle, and Pedasi. And these are all some of the top retirement havens in Panama. If you're interested, we have another video describing some of these top retirement havens. You can check that out when you're done watching this one. Because we're about to be done, number 29, the top expat complaints that we hear from people that we have currently while we have been living there, running our business there, is definitely the litter and the traffic / state of the roads. Litter is unfortunately, a really bad problem all over Panama, both in the city and out in the interior, and in the oceans. There are some new initiatives to help combat this. Recycling is getting a bit better. Waste management is improving all the time, but it's a really unfortunate problem. It's really sad to see so much litter in the forests, in the waters, and definitely if you're in the city, it's just all over the streets. And this is mostly true of the city. The traffic is so terrible, but if you're not in the city, and the traffic isn't that terrible, the roads are usually just as bad as the traffic would have been. So, that's a very big generalization. It's certainly some cities have wonderful roads and very little traffic. I know my friend Dusty Tubbs over in Chitre is always bragging about the wonderful roads that they've got over there, and the fact that there's a very small number of people living there compared to Panama City when it comes to density. So very little traffic. So again, not true of every city, but true of most of them, and true often of the highways. The Pan American Highway is in pretty good condition most of the time. There might be little stretches that get out of shape, but most of the roads off of that, unfortunately, aren't great. So there you have it, 29 things that you'll wish you had known before you moved to Panama, or that you wish somebody had told you. There you go. You can't say it anymore because I did just tell you. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad, just like every place. And we hope to help you discover more about Panama through In Focus Panama, our weekly newsletter service about Panama, totally free. Sign up here. And we love talking about Panama. Send us some comments and send us some questions. We'd love to get back to you. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Live and Invest Overseas podcast.